Scotland claims to be at the forefront of renewable energies, and in 2019, the Scottish Government made a goal of net zero emissions by 2045. They also have goals of 75% reduction by 2030 and a 90% reduction by 2040. They hosted the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, and to achieve these goals, Scotland will use multiple strategies. Some of these are developing the hydrogen sector, carbon capture storage, and developing wind projects, as well as many more. And by 2050, Scotland plans to have a decarbonized energy system. So Scotland's energy consumption has decreased in the last decade, 170,000 gigawatt hours in 2010 to 155,000 gigawatt hours in 2020. The heat sector is where most of its energy is consumed, consuming 51.5% of that. This is followed by transportation with 24.5% and electricity by 21%. The biggest renewable energy for heat is biomass, which produces 3,512 gigawatt hours of the total 5,008 gigawatt hours output by technology. And biomethane also produced 716 gigawatt hours, and heat pumps has produced 390 gigawatt hours. For electricity, wind generated 73% of Scotland's renewable electricity output in 2021. Onshore wind projects produced 17,266 gigawatt hours of the total 27,234 gigawatt hours of electricity output by technology. And offshore wind generated 2,723 gigawatt hours of electricity, and hydro generated 4,509 gigawatt hours of electricity in 2021. And solar produced a fairly small amount with 328 gigawatt hours of electricity. And Scotland plans on continuing this to expand their renewable energy with a pipeline. This pipeline will increase renewable energy capacity by more than 16 gigawatts. Right now, 4.56 gigawatts is already planned, with 1.88 gigawatt hours of capacity in the planning process. And solar is also in the conversation with 767 megawatts of solar projects at different stages of development. I should also mention that the 4.56 gigawatts that is planned is for wind. Speaking of wind, wind is Scotland's top renewable energy. It is at the forefront. Onshore wind accounts for 70% of electricity generated in 2020. And offshore wind is the third largest source of renewable electricity, just behind hydro. Like mentioned earlier, there are plans for more wind projects in the future. One of the reasons wind energies are so prevalent in Scotland is the landscape. Scotland has exposed hills and coastline, which is great for onshore and offshore wind energy. Although wind has many benefits, like no greenhouse gas emissions, it has some downsides as well. One of the downsides is the cost of wind farms. They're not cheap. Another downside is that they can negatively affect the wildlife and migrating birds. Another downside is that the materials used use steel in their production, such as steel, and some of the materials used are not easily recyclable, like carbon fiber. Even though there are some negatives, the benefits far outweigh the negatives. As mentioned before, there are no harmful emissions while the turbines are operating. Another benefit is once they are built, they are reliable and efficient. Many of them, if not all of them, have a lifespan between 20 and 25 years. There are many more reasons why these turbines are positive as well. Now, hydroelectricity is Scotland's highest renewable energy producer. Just like wind, Scotland is great for hydroelectricity. It has the tallest mountains and the biggest lakes in the United Kingdom. Hydroelectricity has also been in Scotland for a long time. One of the first hydroelectric dams in Scotland, the Logan Dam, was constructed in 1934. Scotland produces 85% of the United Kingdom's hydroelectricity. A lot of their hydroelectricity was developed in the 1950s by the North of Scotland Hydroelectric Board. In 1965, there were 54 power stations and 78 dams in Scotland, and this provides a generating capacity of 1,000 megawatts. Even though hydroelectric projects are being built in Scotland, even now, there are more hydroelectric projects being built in Scotland, and hydroelectricity has helped bring electricity to the communities. Like back in the 1940s, about 1 in 6 farms and 1 in 100 crofts had electricity. Now about 12% of Scotland's total electricity comes from the hydroelectricity. Some other forms of renewable energy used in Scotland are solar photovoltaics, solar PV, and bioenergy. And these forms of renewable energy are not as big as wind and hydro, but they're still important. Solar provides energy for smaller communities, while bioenergy provides electricity and heat. So looking at solar, it's a popular renewable energy source worldwide. Scotland is not an ideal place for solar, but it is on the rise. Scotland's renewable energy in general is on the rise, growing from 31% growth in 2011 to 74% growth in 2018. And solar is available to the public and comparatively cheaper than some of the other renewable energies, and it keeps growing cheaper as well. For a typical 5 kilowatt system, it would cost about 6,000 to 7,000 British pounds. There are also many programs and grants for solar in Scotland. One of these is the Warm House Fund, which is designed to encourage the installation of modern heating in households that have no gas access. This program is funded by National Grid and has 150 million British pounds to use. One grant is that Scotland has is the Community and Renewable Energy Scheme, which grants up to 150,000 British pounds to growing communities in community energy projects. Although solar panels are more efficient in southern climates, those in Scotland who choose to get solar can still save money and make a difference. Solar panels are expensive up front, but save money in the long run. Scottish citizens can save up to £140 a year on their electricity bill, and if they choose to export their energy, they can generate around £600 a year. So solar only accounts for 3% of the Scottish renewables. In 2021, Solar Energy Scotland Chair Thomas McMillan was calling for more solar energy in Scotland. He planned to do this by putting some policies into place, and some of these policies include expanding financial support for homeowners, housing associations, and local authorities, and permitting farmers to lease land for solar parks, and supporting creation of smart grids and more. In 2016, bioenergy contributed about 4.4% of the total energy demand. Around 6.7 TWh per year of bioresources are used for bioenergy, and 3/4 of that being wood. There are plans for increasing bioenergy sector. To get this done, an additional bioenergy plant would have to be built to meet the goal of 50% of all energy consumed in Scotland to be from renewables. This is an ambitious but achievable goal. It should also be noted that the renewable energy sector provides many new jobs and opportunities in Scotland. In 2020, there were 27,620 full-time employees in the renewable energy sector. The highest employment was in onshore wind with 10,115 employees. Next comes offshore wind with 6,735 employees. And then third, there's hydro, which comes with 4,380 employees. And this lines up with Scotland's electricity production. The top 3 producers have the top 3 in employment, right? Another goal that Scotland has is to phase out the petrol and diesel cars. From 2030 and onwards, the sale of petrol and diesel cars and vans will be banned. Electric vehicles will begin to replace these cars. The combination of renewable energy and electric vehicles makes for a recipe for a green country. In 2020, there were 1,592 electric vehicle charging stations in Scotland. Scotland has many ambitious goals when it comes to renewable energies, but the country is putting in the effort and working hard to achieve these goals. It will be interesting to see if Scotland achieves its goals or not. It would also be interesting to see what other countries' goals are in renewable energy and how they compare to Scotland's and how they are implemented. Would it be like Scotland's? Would it be more ambitious? Would it be less ambitious? But I think that would be a research paper for another day. Thank you.